Well, Matty, tough loss again on the weekend. It looked like you were pretty exasperated at times. How did you sort of review it?
Yeah, it was a really disappointing backward step. You're making progress. You feel like your group's developing and you're pushing sides, and then you really drop off. So the disappointment after a performance like that is a tough one to swallow. Now it's important we bounce back and that we get back on the steps again and we start going back up, because we fell down a number of steps.
A lot of people, experts and the like, are saying, team not playing to an AFL standard. Does that sting? Does that hurt that confidence?
Yeah, it does, but at the same time, it's reality. We weren't at a standard on the weekend. I think I used the language, the level. You need to be at a level to compete, and we weren't there. We've reviewed and we've sat down and we've talked through it and tried to find answers why. We believe we've found those. They're reasonably simple when it comes to competing. The key is being able to do it week in, week out.
We don't see it very often, but you were quite animated at half time. There was the vision that came through of the water bottles. Can you just, you're trying to get a reaction. What was that? Can you talk us through that?
It was a simple demonstration of what we weren't doing. There were some bananas and some water bottles there, so we used it as and really it was a basic instruction. We're doing a lot of our work at the moment in front of cameras. We're not hiding from small things that we're working on. There was one of those where we just slid a few bottles around and a few bananas, and we used those as players, and it was just a demonstration to our group about, look, if we can't get the basics right, then you're going to really struggle to compete at this level. And that opened up a conversation where I was really glad the boys stepped up at that point and we talked about it. Unfortunately, the damage had been done up till half time. We weren't able to turn it around.
Now, what do you think players aren't doing what they're told?
Pressure of opposition, pressure of games can do funny things with individuals, and when you do feel that pressure and you go down, I think it was 4 goals pretty early in the game, you come in at quarter time, sometimes you can go away from what the team needs, and you can do that by trying too hard as an individual, and we did that on the weekend. We've looked back over it. It didn't look like us at all, what we're trying to work on. We're working on putting out a product, putting out a show for our supporters that they can be proud of watching. And we didn't do that on the weekend. It didn't look like us at all. It didn't look like our game plan, didn't look like the way we trained. What it looked like was 18 individuals running around trying hard, but doing it on their own.
Yeah. Sorry, are the losses starting to leave a scar? Will players get to the point where they're scared to play and scared to make mistakes, and in the end they're in a bit of a whirlpool?
That's the mental strength we're asking our guys to have, is to stick to it. We talked through that yesterday in detail. It was quite a long discussion that we had, really open and honest. And what it comes back to is just the ability to communicate and the ability to stay strong in those pressure moments. And pressure's scoreboard. You saw North Melbourne. That we give them all the credit. They played a really strong game. But when you are up and going, it's incredible how much the chest comes out, the confidence lifts. It's almost the opposite to where our group went, where they sort of went into their shells and started thinking more individual.
Do they have that mental strength?
Yeah, I believe they do. We've got a mix of young and old. That was probably our oldest group we'd played for the year. So that was disappointing that we weren't able to show that mental strength in the game, to at least fight back, to at least get the game back on our terms. But we understand that it's a challenge for a number of our group who are playing, they haven't played 10 games yet. So we need our leaders, our experienced players to step up in those moments and just bring everyone back to what it is we're trying to do.
I think 8 of them are on the sidelines. I think you're missing 8 of your best 22, and too much is being left to too few. How big is that gulf between the young guys and the guys you're looking for to step up?
From an experience point of view, we couldn't be more pleased with what some of our younger guys are doing from a development point of view. But we also understand the challenge they've got at this point with young bodies, a lack of experience, and we've got some guys playing in positions that are pretty tough positions, against grown, experienced, especially inside mids. I don't use Chase Jones as an example. Chase is developing really well as a young footballer. It's always going to be a challenge for him to play as an inside mid, and we'll have a look at that, how we balance that over the coming months. And that's just one example. We managed Fish and Mackesy on the weekend, knowing there was a 4-day break coming in. We'll continue to do that with some of our younger group. We played, as I said, a slightly older group on the weekend. Didn't get the result we were after. We'll be forced to make changes this week, and we'll be slightly younger again.
They'd be relatively straightforward changes, or was there a few harsh calls coming? I know it's only Matt Crouch really is a big name to sort of go out of the side. You look at anyone in particular to make a statement?
Not so much a statement. We're not about making statements. We're about getting better. So we'll make decisions around selection on who's playing for the side, who's there for the team, who's going to put their body on the line when it's their turn to go. Basically, we want to put a product out that our supporters are proud of. So we'll pick a side to do that. There's also an important factor of making sure that our group's balanced. We're not going to put 18 young kids out there with no experience and expect them to show experience. It's just, it'd be stupid to do that. So we'll always look at that balance, and then we're asking certain players to step up in times when we need them.
Why do you think that the senior players, so it was one of your more senior teams for the year, why do you think they're struggling to carry the load? Because a lot of these guys played in the grand final a couple of years ago, but aren't at the level, so to speak. So why do you think it's such a sharp drop?
When you look at, it's hard to pick out individuals or groups, if it's just older players. I think on the weekend, we were so far from the level that if you start talking about individuals, it's not an individual. It's basically team that we're talking about. So I don't want to sort of start picking out individuals or groups of players. We had a really young forward line in on the weekend. We weren't able to bring the ball to ground in our forward line. For those who know the game well, that makes the game really tough. North Melbourne were able to move the ball far too easily through our defence. That starts with not marking the footy in your forward half. I think at half time the inside 50s were even or around the mark, and yet the game was, we had really no dominance in the game at all. So there's so many factors you can look at. It's not individual. We play a team sport, and unfortunately we didn't do that on the weekend.
So that said, is it time to make you've dropped Matt Crouch in the past, which was a tough call. Will you make a call on other senior players this week, or is it not worth it?
As I said, Tom, we'll make a call on players we feel are going to make us better in the squad. We haven't made those decisions yet. We've got a couple of days to do it, so a 4-day break. It's a quick turnaround. There'll be decisions around physical management, around what we're doing there. We've also got players. Tex, if he's up and going, he'll train today. How he pulls up from that will determine whether he plays or not. Fogg was close on the weekend, but not quite ready. Does 4 days get him where we need him? We'll have to see him again tomorrow, so he'll train today and tomorrow. We rested McKay, we rested Mackesy, so there's guys that we want to bring back in that we feel are very much part of our future. There'll definitely be changes. It's a matter of how they come. We're still yet to see.
Luke McDonald just seemed free to do whatever he wanted the entire afternoon. How does that sort of happen? Was there no attempt to shut him down?
No, we have huge respect for the way he plays, and he came in good form as well. Again, we go back to the bigger picture of what the team's doing as a whole. Ball's going into intercept marks. McDonald's able to get off the chain. Not quite getting it done in the contest at centre bounce, and he's a very, very good player and very efficient with the ball coming off the back of the square. Unfortunately, we get drawn in because it's not quite getting done inside, and he's free to come off and handball receive. So it was something we saw in game. Hard to change in game if we're not able to bring the ball to the ground and keep him accountable, and others. He wasn't the only one.
It's been a criticism even before your time that an opposition player gets off the chain and unable to plan for him. Is it a case of continuing to back the system rather than having a run the prop? Rather than a cooler or a tagger? Yeah. Well, that depends on the opponent. We've shown this year that we're happy to run a tag.
if we feel like the player deserves, or we need to take that player out of the game. On the weekend, as I said before, we didn't have anything that looked like our system or our game plan. So, some could argue, will our system get it done if we are playing to it? I believe it will, but by no means do we ever say we wouldn't tag a player, where we wouldn't just say, look, we've got to go and put him away. And you look back in hindsight on the game, he was very influential. We were so far off our system that I'm not sure you stop him even with one player.
So what's the reason for that? What's the reason that the players aren't playing to their system?
I think it's pressure. I think when you get under pressure, and we've been under pressure, and it's building. It does build when you're not getting the results you're after. The pressure builds, and so what you can find is players try harder, but in the wrong areas. And we spoke yesterday about that, and players put their hands up. It's not a lack of effort. It comes across and looks very much like that on the TV. That the players aren't trying, and sometimes they're trying too hard in the wrong areas. So pressure's building. We know it's there. We've got to be bigger than that. Pressure's going to be there every week. We've got to back in the system that that we're working to. Yesterday was great because our players, we had that conversation, and they back it in. They understand game plan. It's now under pressure. We've got to show that.
How do you sort of execute that and mentally refresh guys ahead of Wednesday night?
That's our challenge. Is how do we train that? I haven't. The challenge in that space is I haven't seen over my time too many players that can think I'll get better and then get better. You got to train it. We're working on ways at the moment that we can train it, and there's a challenge. That's every club's in that position, but we also understand, as we said, we're at the moment we're trying to change some habits, some old habits, and that's a challenge in this environment, because we feel like we need some repetition of just train it, and we're not able to do that, but we are working on what sort of drills. Just the way that system, the style of play, how you defend your front half, how you compete in the forward 50. There's some we can train, and there's some areas we're just struggling to get done at the moment, but we'll find a way.
Holding the ball rules reared its head again. As Brad Sire last night against Freo, attacks the ball, 3 players wait, jump on him, he gets pinned for holding the ball. Again, is there sort of confusion around what players are being told to do, how the rules are being applied? Is it frustrating? Just a few thoughts on how that's unfolding?
No, I don't think there's confusion. I think all players are still playing the same way. We want to win that footing. Ultimately, the game is a contest. Teams that win that contested ball win games. So you take the odd. We all make mistakes. I mean, players make mistakes in games, and we don't hang them for that. It's same with it's a tough game to umpire. So I think majority of it's right. Every now and then we get one, and move on. Guys go in hard, and it's a hard game to adjudicate.
Jim Bolton said he wouldn't mind bringing the third man up rules just to sort of add another dimension to clear the congestion. Would you be in favour of considering something like that, or do you have any thoughts on how you would do it yourself?
Got to be careful what I say here. Wouldn't mind the third man up at the moment with our stoppage numbers, but we'll work through that without needing the third man up. Look, I think the rules are the rules. We'll play to them. We're working on other areas at the moment.
Peter asked before about potential for losses to leave a scar. We saw the raw emotion after the Bombers game. Was maybe the performance on the weekend an example that maybe it is starting to hurt a bit, and that took a lot out of the players, the accumulation of losses?
Look, I think you can look into, a loss after a loss is going to be challenging for our group, but that's the same for any side. We've just got to get ourselves right each week, push through. I mean, we travelled away. We didn't get the game anywhere near our terms. That's it in a nutshell. It's from a mental point of view, it's performing under pressure. We've just got to be able to do that. So that's what we're working on.